It's your boy Slides back on another video, and today we have another racing canning slash Easter egg slash another episode coming in soon. Wait. Let's not skip to that. My suggestion is who I think. Alright, so most people probably might disagree with me, but I do think Neek is Breeze for some odd reason. Even though they do say the timeline could be if, but I really do think Unique is definitely Breeze. Y'all let me know in the comments. I really think so for some odd reason.
Sean, Puerto Rican famous Figueroa. But we just call him famous because when he was in the 3rd grade, he won some contest to read a poem he wrote on the radio. What you want me to say? That he deserved it? That fame was never built for this shit in the first place? I don't give a f about none of that. You only get one best friend in your life, and mine's is dead. That shit hurt and gonna stay hurt.
Now, last week we asked a question in terms of who killed Sean famous Figueroa. This week, we're definitely asking the same question, because as expected, we didn't get the answers in 406. I do think Kanan and Jukebox have been sent on a bit of a wild goose chase, and they probably won't even find out the answers in episode 7 either. But just like Kanan and Juke, even after episode 406, us as the audience, we have to separate the lies from the truth. So, after 406, we're not just asking the question in terms of who did it, we're also asking.
Everybody's saying Detective Howard. I'm trying to remember who that is. Detective. Y'all give me a second. Because they were saying Detective Howard did. And I'm trying to remember who's Detective Howard. I'm not saying who did it for real, but I do hear it's Detective Howard. If it's not Marvin, it has to be Detective Howard. Let's see.
Asking the question,
I don't know.
who tortured Famous? Because that's what Detective Garcia said in this conversation with Olga Figueroa. Famous was tortured before his body was just left there in a derelict building like a pile of trash. So, as I said in my breakdown for 406, all fingers did actually point towards the direction of Marvin and Rock until I heard this bit of information. But we definitely need to dive deeper into the question, and again, just like last week, I'm going to be presenting the evidence, facts and findings, the new information that we learned in 406. We're going to be ruling out some of the characters again based on some facts, timeline, and also motive. We're going to run through various different perspectives to this particular team.
It gotta be Marvin, bro. Unless they threw in something in there. And then the actor Famous, Lily said, because someone asked him, how did you die in Raising Kanan? He said he got shot. He can't say what he did, but he got shot. He said it himself. So, if it's not Marvin, it's gotta be someone that's a cop. But I do think it was Marvin.
Teaser that was released before season 4, something that we've not considered before. Once I've done so, then you guys can let me know where you stand, and as always, I'll round off with my own thoughts and opinions, comparing it to where I stood last week. So make sure you stick with this video right till the very end, because we're definitely going to go through a lot of facts, information, and different perspectives to answer the all important question: who tortured Sean famous Figueroa? Now we're first going to start with a couple of characters who we can completely rule out of the running in terms of who physically wouldn't have been able to kill Famous or had anything to do with his death. Kanan definitely has to be ruled out for obvious reasons. This was his best friend. We saw how distraught he was. He didn't know where Famous was himself when he spoke to Duke and also Lou. You saw his facial reactions, his demeanor.
Why would Kanan do it? Even though he did threaten him to get the hell out of the apartment, why would Kanan? I don't know.
We also heard what the elder
Definitely not
Kanan
Kanan.
said in his narration. He's really upset at losing his best friend. Even though I broke down how he wasn't exactly that good of a friend to Famous towards the end of season 3, it's gonna serve as one of many catalysts that turn him into a cold-hardened gangster. So, we're
Could've
ruling
been
Kanan
right.
out. Now, last week we actually spoke about Freddie Williams' crew. They were actually the first people we spoke about in terms of who could have potentially killed Famous, because looking at it logically, Famous did kill Freddie, so it would have been normal for his people to want revenge. In episode 406, we saw Crank and OC give the information to Kanan that they had it was Freddie Williams' crew. So, we saw him and Jukebox grab their guns and make Freddie's crew literally piss their pants at the basketball court. However, based on this interaction, the way they just folded, these guys definitely ain't no killers, let alone be able to torture someone. They even said they weren't exactly the biggest fans of Freddie, so they weren't exactly mourning his loss either, and I do believe them. After watching episode 406, I personally can't see it being Freddie's crew.
You found out who put Fame down? Best believe I want in on that.
Now, shockingly, a lot of people had Jukebox as the killer, and I did question this in one of my breakdowns a couple of days ago. why would Jukebox kill Famous? There are 2 points that do actually clear Jukebox, even more so after watching episode 406. There's a timeline aspect and also the motive. From a motive perspective, Jukebox loved Famous. He was her friend as much as Kanan, and we saw how much she was hurting from Famous's death in 406. She wanted to paint the town red. I mean, she was ready to drop all 4 of these guys at the basketball court. She was just itching to pull that trigger. And she really is hellbent on finding out the truth, who killed Fame, and making it right. Now, from a timeline perspective, she was in the army for at least 2 months as a minimum. Jukebox wouldn't have even been in Queens. So, from my personal opinion, we are ruling out Jukebox. The same also goes for Lou. From a motive standpoint, this is someone who really suffered after killing D-Wiz back in season 1. To the point where he spiraled that out of control. He ended up in rehab where he contemplated suicide. If he was the one to torture Famous, believe me, the drink he was staring at in 406, he'd be knocking them back one after the other. But again, from a timeline perspective, he left in 309 to go to Cedar Shores, and Famous wasn't picked up until 310. Lou also didn't come back to Queens until 402, which was a full 3 months later. I mean, I'm reading some crazy comments where people are saying Lou could have started drinking again, blanked out, and didn't remember the fact that he actually killed Fame. I mean, whatever you guys are smoking, stop smoking that shit, because it definitely
He said stop smoking that shit.
he wasn't Lou. But moving on to Howard and Ronnie. With these two characters, again,
Ronnie.
they were killed in 310 just shortly after Famous was picked up by law enforcement. So, from a timeline point of view, it's physically impossible for it to be Howard and Ronnie. Now with Unique, last week I did leave the option open. If there was ever someone who would torture someone, we have seen Unique do it back in season 1, to even his own best friend who was getting high on the job. So we've seen him do it before. Can it be Unique? Possibly. It would make Kanan kind of unite with Rock, Jukebox, Marvin and Lou, where we would definitely see him help fight this war that we're inevitably going to see against Unique. It's definitely something that could potentially unite the family together. So,
Yeah, Unique is known for torturing and shooting and going on a rampage. Bro has not been the same since he got hit with that shit. It's gonna get worse too. I do have a good feeling it's definitely Unique, but the timeline when he was getting back to recovering and Famous was still okay. It gotta be Marvin.
don't think we can rule out Unique just yet. He was gunning for anyone and everyone, and he would have even taken out Lou if it wasn't for Shirley.
He had a revolver. He didn't have no silencer.
So, I am
Wait,
keeping
let
an
me
open...
check. Hold up. We might be saying it's neat, but the gun that was in that snippet trailer,
I don't think we can rule out
It looks nothing like
Unique just yet. He was gunning for anyone and everyone, and he would have even taken out Lou if it wasn't for Shirley. So, I am keeping an open mind when it comes to Unique. Although from my own personal opinion, I don't see it personally being Unique. He was pretty fucked up for a large portion of those couple of months. He was back up on his feet in and around the timeline at the back end of season 3, so technically, I guess he could have. But I personally don't think so. Maybe after next week, more information will be revealed, and maybe we might be able to kind of rule him out, or maybe put more suspicion on his name. I guess we'll probably keep this one open, but from my opinion, I can't see it being Unique. But moving on to Marvin and Rock.
Here's how the average man's life would change if he never saw an ad again. Day 1, he would install Pi on his...
Who do y'all think it is?
Now, all eyes pointed towards Marvin and Rock, or
That silencer, and it looks like it's a hand right there. I don't know what's that in the back.
at least Marvin. It was
That
based on
ring.
this teaser that was released before season 4, where we see a blurred figure holding a gun towards someone with a silencer that resembles Famous. I think a lot of people do believe this is Marvin behind Famous, and I am one of them. I do think this is Marvin, and I do think this could be Famous. I do still think we'll see Famous's death in a flashback. It's something we spoke about very early into season 4, way before Famous's death was even confirmed. But this image did lead us to believe that Marvin could have potentially been behind Famous's death, and this is way before season 4 even began. Antonio Ortiz wasn't seen in any of the posters, trailers, teasers, or seen doing any kind of media work. We're not going to go into why that is. In my breakdowns, we stick to the storylines, looking at things from a storyline perspective. And from a storyline perspective, from the teaser that was released before season 4, a lot of us were pointing our finger at Marvin, Rock, one or the other, or potentially even both. Especially if you look at the history, you really wouldn't put it past Rock based on what she had Lou do to D-Wiz. We even saw her going over to console D-Wiz's moms back in 103, which was cold. Again, linking this to 406, we saw something very similar with Famous's moms. So I really don't put anything past Rock. She's someone who really is capable of anything. But we're going to come back around to Marvin and Rock in just a
Rock is capable of anything. You wouldn't even know it, but she's definitely always behind something.
moment. First, I do think we have to talk about the new information that was released in episode 406, which adds a new perspective to this particular situation. 1. Famous was actually helping solve a murder of a police officer. He was said to be assisting them before he vanished. We can only assume the detective that they were talking about was Detective Howard in 310. Number 2. The evidence also suggests Famous was tortured before he was killed, and then left in a building like a piece of garbage. So, those are the two new things we learned from Detective Garcia in 406. Now, it could also be the case where Garcia is lying. Maybe he's not telling the full truth. That option definitely can't be ruled off the table either. But we're going on the assumption that Famous was tortured. So let's bring it back to Marvin and Rock and look at this from a different perspective. Now, personally, I can't see Marvin torturing a kid. Sure, he definitely is sloppy. He's done some sloppy things before and making a few mistakes in season 4. We even spoke about how he left a body in the walls of an apartment back in season 1. But torturing a kid? I really don't see Marvin ever torturing Famous. What it means for this particular teaser that was released before season 4, just hold on to that thought because we're going to come back around to a new perspective in just a second.
I don't know,
But
a kid,
on the
though?
other hand, with Raquel,
Rock,
this is
she
someone who I
anything.
would say is capable of anything. Rock is up there as one of the worst mothers in the Power universe, no question. I think some will probably even have her firmly as number 1. We've seen what she's done in the past, we know what she's capable of. And going back to the information from Detective Garcia, in terms of how we mentioned that Famous was assisting law enforcement in the death of a detective, which we have to assume is Detective Howard. If that information was ever fed to Rock from the likes of Andre Barnes, who was said to have many connections within law enforcement, which we can reasonably assume he would have, then would Rock have had someone try and get information from Famous in terms of what he was saying to law enforcement, or potentially what they knew or had him done in for snitching? In my breakdown for 406, I said this could very well end up being a deja vu kind of moment, where we see her consoling D-Wiz's moms, and then we saw her consoling Famous's moms. Honestly, when it comes to Rock, she really is
Rock
capable
is
of
definitely
anything.
behind it.
Now, in terms of Marvin and the teaser that we saw before season 4, I'm genuinely starting to think they might be playing a bigger game when it comes to this teaser. We know Power love to throw curveballs, and I think some of you guys will remember a while ago, just before season 4, I said be very mindful of the games Sasha Penn and the writers of Raising Kanan can play, which all stems from what happened with Joey Badass back in season 3. They did the whole exit interview, they dropped the fact he was dead back on social media, and something I said before season 4, was a fact. These guys can genuinely do something very similar or in the same vein where they trick the audience. I mean, just have a look at the title for season 3, episode 10, Made You Look. And this brings me over to the topic of looking at things from a different lens, which is what Kanan said back in 401.
Everything you seen here happened already, but we didn't peep it the way we needed to because we wasn't looking.
Now, you guys know for many years, in my breakdown, we try and look at all the perspectives. We try and look at things from a different lens, and then I tell you guys how I've come up with my particular theory, prediction, or thesis.
It could be Neek.
Ironic.
It could be Neek or Marvin. Rock is definitely always behind something. The reason why I say it could be Neek, because I don't know, even though he hated his brother, but Kanan did kind of like kill his brother. So I guess he went back to get something that Kanan loves. Or that's the same jacket that Famous got on, so it could be out of. Rock is definitely behind it though. Don't get it wrong. She always behind something. I don't think she pulled the trigger though. It's out of Marvin. I don't think she could hire Neek to do it because they was I don't know.
Ironically, Kanan's
Rock is
narration back in
confusing.
401 was telling us the exact same thing. We weren't looking at season 3 the way we needed to. So, there's still a perspective that we still haven't considered, that we still haven't seen or thought of, which makes this entire situation make sense from Famous being tortured, him talking, who tortured him, why Marvin has a gun to him, and who was behind the murder. There is a certain perspective that we haven't peeped or even considered. I mean, I might have said it, I'm not sure. Some of you guys might be right in the comment section, but again, you can't be 100% sure. One thing I can guarantee is that we definitely will see a flashback or an alternative perspective we haven't considered or seen, and then it's going to make this whole situation make sense. It's going to separate the truth from the lies, and that's when we're going to find out exactly who was behind torturing Famous. Again, I would like to think Marvin wouldn't torture a kid, which is why I'm raising the perspective of them leaving this scene in this teaser here on purpose, throwing us a huge curveball, because the writers of Power know us as Power fans
Tortured, and there is a silencer in the back of his neck.
Don't miss a beat. We're going to look at all the small details. So, this teaser could genuinely be making us look in the wrong direction. Now, Rock on the other hand, I am not putting anything past Rock. If she ever thought Famous was snitching, Famous could have potentially known something in terms of Howard, Kanan, or Rock, trying to get information from him in terms of what law enforcement knew, then honestly, who knows. It would also serve as the final catalyst for Kanan to fully turn against Rock, because there is no
It could be Rush. She probably had on his ring. Probably got on Marvin's ring. Remember I'm saying this. Power, like he said, curveballs, but I do think Rock can probably take Marvin's stuff. I wouldn't say take his stuff, like put on a ring or something, but she had to be behind something. If it's not Marvin, I don't see Marvin torturing Kid. Absolutely not. He bro shoots. Neek, one of them, but then again, is like, I have a good theory that he would come back to kill Fame. Rock, I
way
don't know.
Kanan ever forgives his moms if she was behind what happened to Famous. So there's also the added element of Kanan's relationship with Rock, Jukebox's relationship with Rock, which we did discuss last week. What would Jukebox think of Rock? What would Lou think of Rock? Definitely something new to think about after episode 406, that's for sure. Now I do think the last point I do think we need to consider and discuss, could it have been law enforcement? Could it have been Detective Garcia or other members of law enforcement? That's another common theory I have read in the comment
Cops too,
section.
yeah.
So, on this one, I mean, I personally don't think so. He was said to be assisting them before he vanished. I mean, I can't seem to find a reason why Garcia would torture Famous if he was talking and giving them some kind of information. However, I'm not going to rule law enforcement out completely, so we're going to throw it in the same category as unique. Let's see what we learn. Let's peep the different perspectives and see what information they drop in 407. We definitely need to look at this from a different lens. So, that's a breakdown who tortured Sean Famous Figueroa. We've been through a few different perspectives.
Let's look at the comments. I do want to look up, just like his mom killed him in the moment she turned it. I feel like it was Garcia. That's actually a good theory. This does kind of make a lot of sense. It could be a cost, and they can just frame it on Marvin. I don't know. We'll see on episode 7.